I've been lucky enough to have a bunch of different stops in my career getting to where I am now, actually making a living on social media. One of them was in the mid to late 90s as marketing director for a software company that specialized in computer-aided design software. It was a small company, so everybody did a little bit of everything there. And so at the time, we were developing new software using a graphical user interface, or GUI. Back then, that's what user experience was called because the graphical part was novel. And so I learned, I took courses on how to architect a good GUI, a good user interface, and applied it in my profession. And on almost a daily basis, I wish I'd never had that experience because I get irrationally frustrated by user interfaces pretty much daily. Turns out that Tesla is not actually that bad at all, but there are some improvements that it can make. And that really gets to something else that I want to make a point of before starting this video. It is really awesome that Tesla actually listens to their customers and can make these design changes when they want to, pushing it out to everybody for free. I am not expecting that Tesla is going to watch this video and say, oh, we need to do all of these changes, but I hope somebody at Tesla watches this video, and I hope you'd add the changes that you would like to see made to the user interface in the comments below. So I'm going to dive right into it. We're going to kind of flow this way maybe and then over that way. But the first thing I want to talk about is charging. Of course, you see charging here. You can get to it that way. The exact same button is in here, but neither of those need to be there at all. They are completely redundant because everybody knows that all you have to do is push the battery icon and you're going to get charging information on whatever device that is. That's pretty universal. That's the only button that we need to get to charging. This could go away and this could go away, and they should. The other thing I'd like to see is the ability to toggle between miles versus percentage range. Right now, the whole thing is set up as the button for pulling up the battery. But if you go into display, then down into energy display, you can toggle between percent battery or estimated distance. I think you should be able to do that just by tapping right here. I think that would be really clever. Something that confounds a lot of people after they've even owned their Model 3 for a long time is how to lock and unlock the doors, because it's not actually really obvious. It's this small little icon up here. And yes, you read the manual and you might see that, but it might have been a while since you've read the manual, or you didn't read the manual like many people. Yes, you push that, it can lock and it can unlock. Actually, the park button also works for unlocking, but it doesn't work for locking. But again, that's not something that's going to be really obvious to somebody unless they read the manual. What I think should be done, you have open of the trunk here, open of the front here, open the charge port here. You could have a similar label, maybe at the center of the car, that says unlock doors when the doors are locked, or lock doors when the doors are unlocked. That way, it's obvious to people where it is. A passenger that's never been in the car before, a driver who hasn't read the manual, it's easy to see, and I think it makes a lot of sense to have the door lock and unlock right here. We get down to this cluster right here, and this is one of the things that actually I was irrationally mad about, because this is for your backup camera. But this is exactly the kind of thing I was taught to think about when designing a graphical user interface. The rear camera is right here. There's no reason why the backup camera is over on this side instead of being right in the center. That's a small little petty difference. That's why I say it's irrational for me to be upset that the backup camera icon is over here instead of in the middle. But that's the way I would have done it. I would have had this over here, backup camera in the middle, and then the voice activated button over here. Of course, we've already talked about getting rid of that button. I think we need to move this button over here where the passenger can easily access it. This button is here because when these cars first came out, gosh, it's hard to believe that it's 2 years ago. The scroll wheels weren't used at all, but very quickly, clicking the right scroll wheel is the same thing as pushing that button. And so there's no advantage for the driver to be able to reach up here when your hands are already going to be on the steering wheel, or you just push the steering wheel if you have to reach anywhere. Whereas a passenger might want to use some of the new voice activated features, especially around navigation. And just like they have a volume control close to them that mirrors the volume control on the left scroll wheel on the steering wheel, they should have the voice activated button over here where they can reach it, because the driver no longer needs to be able to reach it. That would leave between these three the backup camera icon right in the center, and that makes a whole lot more sense to me. This seems fine that this is here, and it otherwise works fine. This seems fine that this is here. It's kind of as an afterthought. But the big change that I would like to see is here. I have this set up as lifetime, but I put that label myself. It's actually trip A and trip B. And anybody could come along and delete this and I'll never have that data again. But most of us love to be able to look and see what is our lifetime efficiency, and that should be hard coded. There should be a trip A, a trip B, and a lifetime hard coded into this display. That's not so much a change and buttons or anything like that, but I think that that is a feature that a lot of people would like, and that should be something they should be able to easily change. I don't know if that's something that they'll be able to populate with data in arrears if somebody didn't do what I did here, but certainly for new users, I think most people would like to have that set up. Going across the top here, of course, you hit the Tesla icon, and then information about your Tesla comes up, and you might be trying to get your mileage or your VIN, but it disappears because then your toy box comes up. Well, we've got toy box elsewhere. We can get rid of the toy box up here. We don't need it there anymore. It should just freeze right there. That's what you want when you press your Tesla icon. That's all that should come up. You've got temperature here. I think tapping temperature should bring up weather. In fact, I'm not sure if it's possible. I know some different navigation systems had it at some point. I think Acura had live radar that you could pull up as an overlay on your navigation. I think Tesla could look into that and add that as a feature. But barring that, an app, a weather app, could pop up when you press the temperature. That happens with iPhones. That happens with a lot of different devices. You push the temperature, you get the weather app, because that's information that people want at hand. Going across, all this makes sense. We get over here to the plus and minus. These are obviously zoom buttons, but they're redundant. People know pinch to zoom. People know how to do that. And then you want to recenter and you hit that. These, I think, are completely unnecessary. They don't really take up space that's important, but they're just not needed. All this here makes sense to me. And I actually like the way navigation is laid out. The car icon makes sense for all this, but a lot of people talk about having to press that, then this to open the glove box. I don't think it would be a bad thing to have a glove box button right here somewhere where it's one button away, but that's not a do or die kind of thing. I just think that that would be handy to have. Music certainly makes sense to be the second position. The heated seats, it makes sense that there's driver and passenger heated seats like this, driver and passenger temperature controls. But one of the features that my wife and I both would love is the ability to quickly turn off the heated seat no matter what it is. Of course, you could do voice activation, but press and hold to turn off sure makes a whole lot of sense to me, but that doesn't work. Because you do that with the HVAC system. Press and hold to turn off. Same thing with the cameras up here. You press and hold to turn off. And it just what seems to make sense to both of us that instead of having to tap, tap, tap to turn it off, that you, now the fan's blowing like crazy. Okay, so I got the fan speed down. Just instead of tap, 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 you just press and hold and it turns off. Or even better yet, or maybe just different, is to press and hold to get to this menu, because then you could do all off, but then you can access the rear seats. Whereas what you really have to do is you have to press this. That's typically what comes up first. Then you have to go to heated seats. Then you have to go to the rear seats. I just think that this menu should be separated from this. This and only this should come up when you press the fan. And then this should come up when you press and hold either of the front seat icons. I think that would simplify things, make things easier to get to, especially since there aren't separate controllers for the rear heated seats. For this, we've already talked a little bit about this. The camera is redundant. There's no situation where I'm going to not press that. I'm going to press this first, then press the rear camera. That's redundant. That could go away. The Energy app, that's really cool. That's something that people want to get to. Charging, again, redundant. That should go away. Web, that's fine. But I think the biggest change that could happen here, there's no full screen option. Full screen should be an option. It'd be much more readable. You press here and then it takes up the whole screen, just like you can do when you're watching Netflix or Hulu. Entertainment is fine. I get why they have this kind of tile layout for that. And then vertical layout of the tiles on the left, because the games need a bit of an explanation. And then Toy Box is the same thing as pressing that icon and then waiting a little bit. When really, I think these two things need to be separated. These were joined together because this whole area up here had a lot fewer options, and it was kind of like a bunch of Easter eggs. It was fun to find. At one point, they weren't even telling people it was there. You kind of had to know to go there and wait, and it would eventually pop up or slide this down. But now we have Toy Box as an option in this menu. We can get to it straight from that button. And this should go to just that and Frozen. And Toy Box should go to just this. This no longer needs to be displayed the same time you're showing the Toy Box at all. Doesn't make sense anymore. Call, really, it should be phone, because now we've added messages. And of course, you've got contacts, which you might want to access for other reasons. Calendar is calendar. That's fine. This is not really an important thing to me. That might be another thing that they allow, is for people to shift the tiles around on menus to the positions that the user wants to see them. That might be more complicated, more software programming than any of us want them to be spending time on, but that might be fun as well. These features, I need to be driving at night for you to be able to see. You can see here that I've got a fog light icon. I've got auto high beam icon. It's grayed out because my high beams are not currently on. And then I've got headlight icon. I think we should be able to toggle the fog lights on and off by tapping that. And we should be able to toggle between auto and manual high beams by tapping that icon. I guess we could toggle headlights on and off. I never want it on anything but auto, but there are times actually, I guess, when you park and you want to turn them off, it's much better if we can just toggle them off here than if you go into the driving menu and then do them in here. The other legacy of the steering wheel buttons not being activated with the first cars that were rolling off of the line is this minus and plus here. This is for changing your maximum set speed. They're super hard to hit in the first place, but nobody uses those anymore. You can do that with the right scroll wheel, and these can just completely go away. They're not exactly distracting, but they are definitely in your field of view when you're looking at information in this area, including animation of the car that your car, the autopilot, is tracking. These two things just need to go away. They're not needed anymore. Tesla also needs Apple CarPlay and Android Auto integration. I've never had a car that had either of those, but seeing other people use it, it's pretty cool. I know that Tesla's own interface is approaching the functionality of those things, but people want that specific integration. And I think that'll add a lot to the user experience to be able to do that. The other thing, as a guy that's about to turn 50, I would like the ability to have larger text than is displayed right now. I don't have a problem reading this now. And I'll tell you, just because in a quick look down on the screen, that might take your eyes a bit to focus or find the right place in your glasses to focus, doesn't mean that you are a bad driver at all. You don't have to be 80 or 85 and wearing Mr. Magoo glasses to have trouble finding text that's this size as you get older. Your eyes just get slower to change focus at different distances. So I would love to have an option of being able to increase the text size at least around the perimeters so that things are a little bit easier to find on the fly. That's not a big deal, but I know I'm not the only one asking for it. Tesla also needs a Tesla Cam Player app. I think that's where they get in a little bit of trouble with calling this entertainment, because I would think that the viewer app would be in theater, but maybe they could do where it's a push of Tesla Cam up there, and then you get to a Tesla Cam control panel, which then has a player built into it. But they need some way of viewing, especially Sentry events, Sentry mode events inside of the car. When you get in, you're like, oh my gosh, Sentry mode event, I want to see what it was. You should be able to push the Sentry mode event notice and then a player pop up, and then you could see what it saw. That's, I think, something that they've got to be working on that. They've got to be working on that because it's so common sense that that's something you should be able to do. But I can't wait until they offer that. The last thing is Tesla needs a watch app. It's really cool that they have an app on the phone, and there's so much power that you can do in the phone. But there are a lot of features, including just proximity, that can happen with a watch app. I don't know what the Bluetooth signal strength is in the watch versus the phone. Maybe that's part of the issue. But if I have the phone already in proximity, or if I have the phone and I can communicate through the phone, I should be able to remotely lock and unlock the car door with my watch. I should be able to control the HVAC settings with my watch. Those little things, it just makes perfect sense that there should be a companion watch app to the phone app. The last thing is, let us unlock the charge port on proximity. Currently, you have to kind of tap one of the door handles to wake the car up, and then you can unlock the charge port by pushing on the button on the charge handle. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about with your high power wall connector at home. It's a Tesla accessory, or with a supercharger, Tesla accessory. You should be able to just walk up to the car, and the car will know you're in proximity anyway, and you press the button on a charge handle, and then it should unlock your charge port. That is something that is a real pain in the butt to deal with in the morning, because I've got to walk past my charge port to wake up the car, then back to the charge port to unplug the car, and then back into the car. And it's just extra steps that are completely unneeded. And it's a feature that I know a lot of people have been asking for. Be sure to leave in the comments anything that you think that they can change about the user experience, and features that you would like to see added overall as well. I do know that Tesla reads these things, and they get some of their best ideas from customers like you. Maybe just think of what happened with Joe Mode. If you don't know what that is, you can Google Joe Mode and the story behind that. If you're looking to get the updatability, the upgradability of a Tesla for yourself, be sure to use my Tesla Owners referral link. Right now it'll get you free supercharging. The full details of the Owners referral program can be found at the link itself. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I really appreciate you watching The Tech of Tech, and I hope to see you next time.